Hey guys, welcome to my Week 13 college football best bets video for the games that'll be happening this week. Like I said, this will be for Week 13 of the 2023 college football season. We will be looking at the spreads, money lines, and the over-under for every matchup for these top 25 teams. And there's a lot of different games. We have games Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So let's get started breaking them down. Hit that like button and subscribe. Kicking things off Thursday night at 7:30 p.m. on ESPN. We have number 12 Ole Miss sitting at 9-2 versus Mississippi State sitting at 5-6. Ole Miss is 10-point favorites here. So Ole Miss, they have the weapons. They have Jackson Dart. They have Quinton Junkins. They have Harris at wide receiver. Mississippi State, they basically have absolutely nothing going for them. They have fired their coach. Since Mike Leach passed, they cannot move the ball at all because they abandoned the air raid and they went with a 1960 style of football. That just does not work these days. Will Rogers is there, but without the air raid, they will not be able to move the ball. I do have Mississippi State losing this game. So I have Ole Miss getting the win here. They're going to win 30-17. So I'm going to go with the under, but they're definitely going to cover that spread just because Mississippi State cannot score to save their life. Coming in at 12 p.m. on Friday now, we have 5-6 TCU, who is way better than their record actually shows. Do not underestimate TCU, and they almost beat Texas. They will be playing number 13 Oklahoma, sitting at 9-2. Oklahoma comes in as 10-point favorites here, and the over-under is 63.5. So for TCU, like I said, do not underestimate them due to their record. They have a pretty decent offense. They are averaging 31 points per game, and their defense is pretty serviceable also. This team did just go to the national championship last year. Yes, they got boat raced. They lost a lot of those good players, but this is not a bad roster. They should get better every year going forward. For Oklahoma, they have a top 25 defense. They have a top 15 offense. They can definitely move the ball. Dylan Gabriel did get hurt this past weekend, so the backup could potentially be playing, but Dylan Gabriel has not been ruled out as of yet. If he plays, he is closing in on 3,300 yards, 27 touchdowns, 5 picks. Their biggest issue, they cannot run the ball, but even with the backup, they still won the game last weekend. That could just make things closer here, but I have the Sooners getting the win here, 34-28. So I'm going to go with the under, and I also do not think that they will cover that spread. They have a good defense, so that's their saving grace here. It's just we don't know who the starting quarterback will be as of yet. Coming in at 7:30 p.m. on ABC, we have 6-5 Texas Tech versus number 7 Texas, sitting at 10-1 Texas. 12.5-point favorites here. Over-under is 54.5. So this could be the potential last time that these two teams get to play. Texas Tech, just like TCU, is way better than their record. Do not underestimate Texas Tech. This team almost beat Oregon at the beginning of this season. They have a pretty decent offense. They have a serviceable defense. For Texas, they did lose Brooks for the year. He's one of the top 5 best running backs in the country. That's a massive loss, but CJ stepped up this past week. They were able to run the ball. He had 118 yards. They still have Quinn Ewers, who's not living up to expectations so far this year, but the talent is definitely there. Worthy did go down, but they have him. They have Mitchell. They have a top 20 defense. So Texas, they just have to win out. Win every game, potentially play Oklahoma in the Big 12 championship, and you will be in the playoffs. Just win out, get through this week, get to the Big 12 championship, and they're in. So they have to be looking at what the facts are right now. I have Texas winning 37-24. They will cover the spread, and I'm going with the over. At 8:30 p.m. on Fox, we have number 16 Oregon State sitting at 8-3, coming off of that really close, hard-fought loss versus Washington, versus number 6 Oregon sitting at 10-1. Oregon's probably the best one-loss team as of right now. They are pretty much the one-loss team that I would not want to play as of anyone right now. They are hotter than anyone in the country right now. Maybe Georgia, but I think that Oregon's probably the hotter team right now. They have a top 3 offense. They have a top 10 defense. One of the best rounded teams in the country. They don't have the best strength of schedule so far, but everyone they've played, they've curb stomped them all. They have Oregon State. This is the final time that these teams get to match up as of right now. That's a complete disgrace here that happened, but it is what it is. So cherish this game here, but this is a matchup of the in-state rivals. Oregon, 13.5-point favorites here. Over-under is 62.5. Bo Nix is probably number 1 for the Heisman as of right now. If not, he is number 2. But this team is loaded with weapons. They have Bo Nix at quarterback. They can run the ball with Irving. They have Franklin at wideout. Do not underestimate Oregon State with DJU and with Martinez at running back, closing in on 1,200 yards. They have a really good offense. They average 38 points per game. Ducks are 46.5. But Oregon State also has a top 25 defense. So they're a very tough team. But I have Oregon getting the win here. They're going to win this game 41-24. So I have them covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. At 12 p.m. on CBS, we have number 17 Iowa at 9-2. Their offense is horrible versus 5-6 Nebraska, who their offense is also horrible. The spread here is Nebraska's actually the favorites here. 2-point favorites, over under 26.5. Iowa refuses to cover these record-setting over-unders here. They don't match them. They always go under. It keeps getting lower and lower, and their score keeps getting lower and lower. Iowa, their offense, and the Cornhuskers' offense are both pathetic. They both average like 15 or 16 points per game. A complete joke in 2023 that these teams are that. I don't blame Nebraska. They have Matt Rule. This is a much improved team nonetheless. He has to switch over the roster. Kirk Ferentz, though, has been there for like 50 years. So this is completely his fault. He has a top 10 defense, but he refuses to get an offense that's past 1950. So it is what it is, but we'll have to just roll with it. So Nebraska 2-point favorites here, over under 26.5. Nebraska has to win this game. They have to get to a bowl. Iowa wants to win this game so that they can play whoever wins of the Ohio State-Michigan game. But I have the Hawkeyes getting the upset here, if you want to call it. So I'm going to go with that +2. I have Iowa winning 17-6, and I'm going with the under. Because it's the Hawkeyes, it's always the under. At 3:30 p.m. on ABC, we have UTSA sitting at 8-3. Their coach has been getting a lot of praise, and there's a lot of rumors of him possibly coming up for the A&M job. Versus number 23, Tulane, sitting at 10-1. Their only loss to Ole Miss, and they did not have Pratt at quarterback that game. Tulane, 3.5-point favorites here. Over-under is 51.5. So UTSA can move the ball. They can throw the ball. But Tulane is actually a pretty decent team. They have Pratt. They have Hughes at running back. But like I said, UTSA can move the ball. They can go vertical on you. Tulane refuses to cover the spread. They haven't covered a spread in like 5 or 6 weeks. And they've been barely beating bad teams. 28-7, 26-23. At some point, that's going to catch up with you. Just like I said in my predictions video for this week, which you can check that out. I said, if you continue to play like crap, a loss will find you. I'm going to go with the loss here. I have UTSA getting the upset, so I'm going to go with the +3.5. I have UTS winning 28-27, and I'm going with the over. At 4 p.m. on CBS, we have number 9, Missouri, sitting at 9-2, trying to get to 10 wins. That's a pretty big accomplishment to get 10 wins in the SEC. They're coming off of that really close win versus Florida. They're playing 4-7 Arkansas, so Sam Pittman is coming back next year. They really don't have anything to play for. They're not going to get a bowl game. They're just trying to play the upset team and trying to beat up on the high-ranked team. So Missouri's 7.5-point favorites here, which they could easily cover that. The over-under is 54.5. But like I said, Arkansas should be motivated to just try to upset a top 10 team. But Missouri's offense is loaded. They have Cook at quarterback. They have Schrader at running back. They have Burden at wide receiver. He catches everything. I have Missouri getting the win here, but I think it's going to be close. I have them winning 30-27, so I do not have them covering that spread, but I am going to go with the over. At 7:30 p.m. on NBC, we have number 11 Penn State sitting at 9-2 versus 4-7 Michigan State. Penn State 21.5-point favorites here. Pretty big spread, over under 42.5. So they have Penn State beating the crap out of the Spartans. For Drew Aller, he did get hurt this past weekend. He could still potentially start, but he has 2,000 yards, 21 touchdowns, and only 1 pick. They have a pretty decent run game. Their biggest issue is they cannot go vertical, but Michigan State can't stop you no matter what you do. So that's why Penn State is favored so much. Michigan State's only thing here, they don't have Mel Tucker, so just like Arkansas, trying to play as the upset team and trying to beat a highly ranked team. But I have Penn State getting the win no matter who starts at quarterback. I have them winning 35-13 because they have a top 10 defense led by Manny Diaz. They can get after it. They're going to be all over Michigan State. They're going to get some sacks. They're going to get some turnovers. They'll win 35-13. I have them covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. Now we're moving back into Saturday. So on Saturday, November 25th, we have at 7 p.m. on ESPN, number 5 Florida State at 11-0 versus Florida sitting at 5-6. Florida State 6.5-point favorites here, over under 50.5. This is going to be a battle of the backups. So for Florida State, Jordan Travis is out for the year, so they have Ron Baker coming in at quarterback. He did come in this past weekend, and they were able to move the ball pretty efficiently. But he has a tall task here, so he's filling in for a highly decorated quarterback. Florida, Graham Mertz is probably also not going to be playing, so they're going to be going with Max Brown here. So battle of the backups. Florida State is undefeated, trying to get into the playoffs. A lot of eyes on them to see if their offense falls off. If it falls off, I think they could potentially get left out of the playoffs. If they keep clicking like they were before, although they weren't really clicking that well before. They weren't really moving the ball well. But an undefeated team is an undefeated team. They have Louisville in the ACC championship, so they have to get the offense back on track, have to move the ball, have to prove to the committee that Jordan Travis being hurt will not stop them from deserving of that top 4 spot. And for Florida, they're just trying to get a bowl game. So they're just trying to get the 6 wins. Billy Napier will definitely be feeling the heat, whether they get it or whether they don't get it. But beating Florida State would definitely help. I don't think it's going to happen here. Florida State has a top 20 defense. They have lots of weapons. They're going to run the ball right down Florida's throat, try to make it easier for their quarterback. They have Benson. They have Coleman. They're going to win. I have Florida State getting the win here, 27-20, so covering the spread, but I'm going with the under. The next one is the game of the weekend, the game of the year so far at 12 p.m. on Fox. Number 2 Ohio State at 11-0 versus number 3 Michigan at 11-0. So we have Ryan Day, but no Harbaugh. He is suspended for this game. So we have Sharon Brown coming in. He is the offensive coordinator. He's been having really conservative play calls the last 2 weeks when he coached. They've been running the ball a lot, but they're only running the ball for about 3.5 yards per carry. That's not good in college football. That might work for pros, but in college, it should be 5 to 6 for every single carry, no matter who you're playing. But J.J. McCarthy hasn't thrown a touchdown in 3 games. That's a big deal here. So Michigan is the favorite, first time in 5 or 6 years. They're the favorite. They're 3-point favorites here, over under 46.5. I've waffled on this game so much. I will not have anything to do with this game. I will not bet on this game at all because I don't know who's going to win. The whole season, I had Michigan winning hands down. I thought they were the best team in the country. I still feel that way. They are the most talented team in the country. But since Harbaugh's been out, they've completely fallen off the rails. Their offense has become so conservative to just running the ball. On 3rd and long, they're not even throwing. They're still running, and they just won't get the first down. They'll just punt it. That's fine versus Maryland, but versus the Buckeyes, even though Kyle McCord is not good at all, you're going to need to get first downs. You're going to have to get aggressive, and I think Sharon Brown's just trying not to lose the game as the coach because he doesn't want to get the flack from that, so he's playing conservatively. Had Harbaugh been there, they would still be a run-first team, but they'd be a lot more aggressive because Harbaugh's not worried about losing because he curb stomps the Buckeyes every single year. So if he's playing, Michigan wins. Because he's not playing and because I just haven't seen Sharon Brown call a good, complete game and the Wolverines look good under him, I'm going to go with the Buckeyes, even though I don't think they are the better team. But they have the number 2 defense. Michigan has the number 1 defense in the country. These teams are loaded on both sides of the ball. Michigan has the better line. They've won the offensive line of the year the last 2 years, and they are up the 3rd year in a row. If they win this game, it's going to be because J.J. McCarthy can scramble. Just like the Penn State game, he got the first downs with his legs. But Ohio State has the best, if not second best, wide receiver core in the country. They have their tight end back. They have Henderson at running back. But I have the Buckeyes getting the win. 24-17, so I'm going with the +3 and the under. But like I said, I'm not touching this game. I think Michigan should win the game. They're the better team. I just haven't seen them play well under Sharon Brown so far. So I just can't pick them as of right now. Next game at 12 p.m. on ABC, we have 6-5 Kentucky who's completely fallen off the rails since that 5-0 start. But that happens to Kentucky every single year. Versus number 10, Louisville, sitting at 10-1. Louisville has their sights set on playing Florida State in the ACC championship. I don't think they really care about this game at all. It has no bearing on them. They just have to get through it. Louisville 7-point favorites here. The over/under 50.5. Louisville has a top 20 offense, top 20 defense. This is a very talented team. This is a transfer portal team. They have Drake Plummer at quarterback. They have Jordan at running back. They have Thrash at wide receiver, and they get after the quarterback. And Plummer is not really sacked that much. He's not pressured now. Kentucky will be nonstop blitzing. They have a serviceable defense, but I have Louisville getting the win 27-24. So I do not have them covering the spread, but I'm going with the over. Next game at 12 p.m. on ESPN, we have 7-4 Texas A&M without Jimbo Fisher versus number 14 LSU at 8-3. LSU 11.5-point favorites here, over under 66.5. So they have this game being a high-scoring one for A&M. Their quarterbacks, they've been getting guys hurt. They've been down to second, third-string quarterbacks. They don't have Jimbo Fisher, but they do have a top 20 defense, and they can get after the quarterback, and they can keep this game within reach somewhat. For LSU, they have a god-awful defense, but they have a really good offense. Jaden Daniels, had this team only lost 2 games, he would be hands down the Heisman frontrunner, having a record-setting year, 3,600 yards, 36 touchdowns, 4 picks. And he's also ran for over 1,000 yards and 10 picks. So he's lighting it up, having a Lamar Jackson, well, actually better than Lamar Jackson type season so far. He's just not getting the praise because they have the 3 losses. So that's a killer. But I have LSU getting the win here, 38-24. So I have them covering, but I'm going with the under, just due to A&M's defense keeping the game under 66. At 3:30 p.m. on CBS, we have number 8 Alabama at 10-1 versus 6-5 Auburn, who just came off of getting the crap kicked out of them by New Mexico State. I don't even know how that happened. Luke Fickell probably doesn't know how that happened, but they paid them $1.8 million to come to Auburn and curb stomp them. But Alabama is 14.5-point favorites here, over under 48.5. For Alabama, they've been hot for the last 3 or 4 weeks. Milroe has looked great, and they have a top 20 offense, top 20 defense. They have things rolling, so their offense is not good as years past, but it's still pretty good, and they still have a very good defense, and Auburn's just not really good at all. So that's why the spread is so big, but this is an in-state rivalry game, so anything can happen. But I have Alabama getting the win, 38-17, so I have them covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. At 3:30 p.m. on ESPN, we have number 15 Arizona sitting at 8-3. One of the surprise teams this year. Props to Jed Fish. This team is really good. They have a top 20 offense, top 20 defense. They came out of nowhere, but this is a really well-coached physical team playing Arizona State at 3-8. So everything that Arizona is, Arizona State is not. They are not a good offensive team. They are not a good defensive team. And Arizona is 10.5-point favorites here. Over under is 50.5. I have Arizona getting the win, 31-17. So covering the spread, but I'm going with the under. But I definitely think that they could go over, because this could be like a 45-13 game also. At 3:30 p.m. on ABC, we have 5-6 BYU versus number 20 Oklahoma State sitting at 8-3. Oklahoma State 17-point favorites here. Over-under is 56.5. For BYU, do not underestimate them. Their offense stinks, but they are a pretty competitive team, and they can slug it out with you when they have to. Just ask the Sooners. So this team is better than their record, technically. They've just been beat up by injuries. For Oklahoma State, they had a close one versus Houston, but I said that Houston would surprise them and keep the game close. They would lose, but they would keep the game close. Oklahoma State cannot pass to save their life, but Ollie Gordon is one of the top 5 running backs in the country, 1,400 yards and 15 touchdowns. Most of that done after week 3, so that's pretty crazy. But Oklahoma State, they're just going to be looking to run the ball down the throat. They have an outside chance to get into the Big 12 championship. So that's what they're hoping for, is to get 9 wins here. If they don't get to the Big 12 championship, they could still possibly win their bowl game and get to 10 wins. I have Oklahoma State getting the win here, 37-21, keeping the game on the ground. So not covering the spread, but I'm going to go with the over. At 3:30 on the SEC Network, 2-9 Vanderbilt versus number 21 Tennessee at 7-4. How Tennessee is number 21 right now, sitting at 7-4, I don't know. They should have gotten pushed out of the poll. but they are still number 21 right now. But I do like Josh Heupel. This is just a rebuilding year. Tennessee, 27-point favorites here. That's a pretty big spread, over under 56.5. So Vanderbilt, there's really not much to say there. They don't have a good offense. They don't have a good defense. They have a lot to work on, but it's pretty hard to bring top talent into Vanderbilt. And then you have number 21, Tennessee. Joe Milton cannot throw the ball accurately past 5 yards, but they can definitely run the ball with Milton and with Wright, and they have a pretty decent defense. So I have Tennessee getting the win here, 41-17. So I do not have them covering the spread, just barely, but I am going to go with the over. But, Josh Heupel could be seeking to light this game up to prove that they belong in the top 25. So he definitely could potentially cover that spread. The next game at 3:30 p.m. on CBS. Welcome to the top 25. Liberty at 11-0 versus UTEP at 3-8. Liberty 16.5-point favorites here. Over under is 57.5. So Liberty can throw the ball. They have Salter closing in on 2,500 yards, 28 touchdowns, 5 picks. They also have Cooley at running back closing in on 1,200 yards. So this team can throw it. They can run it. They have a pretty decent defense. So I have Liberty getting the win here versus UTEP, who's just not very good. Liberty wins 38-21. They cover the spread, and I'm going with the over. Next game at 4 p.m. on Fox, we have 5-6 Washington State versus number 4 Washington Huskies sitting at 11-0. So this is another game that this could potentially be the last time that we see these two teams play. For Washington State, they are 5-6. They got really hot this year and then completely fell off. But do not underestimate Cameron Ward. They have a very good quarterback. He can definitely throw. He is closing in on 4,000 yards so far this season. But their defense is just god-awful. So they will not be able to stop anyone. But they will be fighting this game because they want to get to bowl eligibility. But they're playing number 4 Washington. Washington is just looking to win this game and then play Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. If they win out, they are in. But the Ducks will be pretty tough. But Washington can score. They have a serviceable to average defense, but if it's not Bo Nix, then it's Michael Penix Jr. for the Heisman lead right now, closing in on 3,700 yards, 30 touchdowns, 7 picks. He led college football in passing last year, and he's close to doing that this year. So this team can throw, and they have Johnson to run. If it's not the Buckeyes, it is Washington as the best wide receiver corps in the country, led by Rome Odunze, 1,200 yards, 11 touchdowns. Washington is 16.5-point favorites here, over under 68.5. I have Washington getting the win and finishing the regular season undefeated. They win 45-27. I have them covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. Penix will want to get those points to pad his Heisman stats. Next game at 7 p.m., we have number 18 Notre Dame sitting at 8-3 versus Stanford sitting at 3-8. Notre Dame 26.5-point favorites here, over under 51.5. Stanford cannot stop anyone from scoring to save their life. They have a decent offense. It's not bad, but they can't stop anyone. For Notre Dame, this is potentially Sam Hartman's final regular season game. This guy's been playing for about 15 years right now, but he's had a great career so far. And they also have estimated they have one of the best running games in the country and a top 10 defense. So I have Notre Dame cruising to an easy win here, 45-17, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. At 7:30 p.m. on ABC, we have number 1 Georgia at 11-0 versus Georgia Tech sitting at 6-5. Georgia 24-point favorites here, over under 59.5. So with this game, Georgia has obviously been as hot as anyone right now. Carson Beck has been going off. He's closing in on 3,400 yards, 21 touchdowns, 5 picks, and he did some of that work without Brock Bowers, and they still have a top 10 defense. So this team is firing on all cylinders right now. They want to carry that into playing Alabama in the SEC championship. So they're just going to coast through this game, beat up Georgia Tech, rest the starters as soon as possible, keep them fresh, do not get anyone hurt. Try to get to the Bama team, the Bama game as a completely healthy team. Georgia Tech, though, they're actually not bad. They are having a pretty decent year so far this year. They have a couple upsets, so they should be able to get a couple first downs. I have Georgia winning 41-17, so I'm going with the push, and I'm going with the under, just because I think they're going to pull a lot of starters. They've won the regular season, beat Bama, get to the playoffs. That's their goal. But then they could also win, 50-3. Next game at 7:30 p.m. on the SEC Network. Number 24 Clemson at 7-4. I don't know how they put them into the top 25 at 7-4, but they came into the top 25 this week. That's kind of a joke, but whatever. Versus South Carolina sitting at 5-6. For the Gamecocks, they're just trying to get to a bowl game, but they'll have to win this game. Clemson 7-point favorites here, over under 51.5. Clemson's offense has been better for the last few weeks. It's not great, but they're still averaging in that 31 to 33 point area right there. So definitely better, and they do have a top 25 defense, so they can get after the quarterback for South Carolina. Rattler is going to be getting rattled. They're going to be getting after him, getting sacks, and getting pressure. I have Clemson getting the win here. Like I said, 7-point favorites, the over-under 51.5. Clemson wins 35-24, covers the spread, and I'm going with the over. Next game at 8 p.m. on Fox, we have Iowa State at 6-5. Just as Texas, they have a pretty tough defense, and they have a serviceable offense, but they rely on their top 20 defense. Versus number 19, Kansas State, who is the defending Big 12 champs. They are 8-3. They are a very good team. They have a top 20 offense, top 20 defense. Their offense is led by Will Howard. They can run, they can throw, they play really sound physical defense. But Iowa State has a really physical defensive line. They will be getting after Howard. They will be trying to keep this game close. Kansas State, they are 9.5-point favorites here. The over-under is 47.5. I have Kansas State getting a win here. 27-18, so not covering the spread, and I'm going with the under, but it will be a very good win. And the final game of the weekend at 8 p.m. on the ACC Network, 8-3, North Carolina Tar Heels versus number 22 NC State, sitting at 8-3. So North Carolina is out of the top 25. NC State comes in the top 25. For the Tar Heels, they are 2.5-point favorites here, over under 55.5. So UNC can definitely move the ball. They have Drake May. This could potentially be the final time that we see him. Now, he might still play the bowl game, but this could potentially be the final time that we see him. But he is a top 5 draft pick right now. He has 3,400 yards, 22 touchdowns, 7 picks. They have Hampton. He's closing in on 1,500 yards rushing, and they have Walker at wide receiver. They have weapons. They can run. They can throw. They have Drake May. NC State, they don't have a good offense. They have a top 20 defense. They get after their quarterback. They get a lot of turnovers. So they will try to create a lot of havoc for Drake May. Thankfully for UNC, he is Drake May. So he is a top 5 pick for a reason. I have UNC getting the win here, 31-27, covering the spread, and I'm going with the over. So that's my breakdown of the Week 13 college football games. Hit that like button and subscribe. Thanks.